There are stories in the NFL that simply can't end the way this one nearly ended, my friend. On December 7th of last year, a player took the field, absorbed a hit to his right knee, and had to be helped off. Torn anterior cruciate ligament. 35 years old, in his 13th season. Everybody who watched that moment did the same quiet math in their head. That's it. At that age, with that mileage, with that kind of tear, the odds are brutal. It was the end of the road. And yesterday, 8 months after that afternoon, a piece of news dropped across the league and flipped that math completely upside down. And it isn't just the fact that he's been cleared. It's where he was when the news came out. And it's the city that immediately showed up in the middle of the conversation. Because the moment the report circulated, one of the reporters who knows the inner workings of Philadelphia best went on the air publicly making the case for an idea that gives goosebumps to any fan with a decent memory. Bring this man back home. Not as a tribute, not as an emotional farewell, as a football player with a clear role inside the 2026 roster. If you're a diehard Eagles fan, hit that like button right now and subscribe to the channel, because I'm going to show you exactly why this argument isn't cheap sports radio romanticism, what the 3 concrete reasons are that the insider put on the table, and what the real, mathematical obstacle is that could knock the whole thing down before it ever gets started. Let's get to what happened. On Tuesday, August 4th, Adam Schefter of ESPN reported that the veteran had been officially cleared for all football activities following the reconstruction of the ligament. And more than that, he was already working out. He was spotted on the Stanford campus catching passes from none other than Andrew Luck, his college teammate. According to Schefter, the expectation is that he'll be ready to sign a contract by mid-August, which means a matter of days from now. He wants to play. He wants a 14th season. And the name of that player, a 3-time Pro Bowl selection and a Super Bowl champion in the green uniform, is Zack Ertz. Now let's understand why this became a serious talking point in Philadelphia, and not just a sentimental footnote. The argument came from Elliot Shorr-Parks of 94 Whip Radio, and he built his case on 3 pillars. The first is the most obvious and the most human. He should finish where it all started. Ertz was drafted by the Eagles in the 2nd round back in 2013. He spent 9 seasons with this franchise. He was part of the team that won the first Super Bowl title in club history, and he's the one who caught the go-ahead touchdown pass that night against New England. Is there a bigger emotional story than that in Philadelphia? There's basically nothing that comes close. After stops in Arizona and then in Washington, closing the circle at home would be the perfect script. But the 2nd and 3rd pillars have nothing emotional about them. They're pure football. Shorr-Parks argued that the Eagles could use another dependable pass-catching option, and that Ertz is still one of the better choices in the league at the position. And then came the point that really carries weight. This team is one Dallas Goedert injury away from desperately needing a pass-catching tight end. Ertz, in his words, would be a great insurance policy. And here you need to look at the numbers carefully, because they knock down the lazy thinking of anyone who has already buried the veteran over his age. Before tearing the ligament last season, Ertz played 13 games, all as a starter, and put up 50 receptions for 504 yards and 4 touchdowns on 72 targets. Even after missing 4 games, he still finished in the top 3 on his team in all 3 of those categories. The year before, his first in Washington, he had 66 catches for 654 yards and 7 touchdowns in 17 games, helping that offense reach the conference championship. Add the 2 seasons together, 30 games, 116 receptions, 1,158 yards, and 11 touchdowns. That's starter production, not luxury backup production. And there's a detail almost nobody mentions. In his last full game before the injury, he caught 10 passes for 106 yards. 10 catches, my friend. At 35 years old. This is not a player who was being carried by the system. This was a player still producing at high volume when the knee gave out. Now take a step back with me and look at the size of the resume. Zack Ertz has 825 career receptions, which puts him 5th among all tight ends in NFL history. That's 8,592 yards, 8th all-time at the position, and 57 touchdowns, 10th among tight ends. All of it across 181 games, with 143 starts. If he plays in 2026, he keeps climbing those lists. Do you understand what it means for a player of that caliber to be sitting out there available on the open market in August, with no team having knocked on the door yet? And there's another element that strengthens the case for a return. In mid-April, just a few weeks after Washington signed Chigo Okonkwo to a 3-year, $27.5 million deal, making it clear who their number one tight end would be. Ertz himself expressed interest in coming back to the Eagles. In other words, this isn't just one reporter's wish. The player already put his desire on the table publicly months ago. And on the financial side, the picture also favors Philadelphia. He played last season on a salary of $6,250,000, and after a serious rehab like this one, he should naturally come at a considerably lower cost now. But here's the deal, and this is where the story hits a wall. The problem isn't desire, it isn't money, and it isn't talent. It's roster math. Reports indicate there are 3 names essentially locked into the final roster at tight end: Dallas Goedert, Johnny Munt, and Eli Stowers. Goedert returned for 2026 on a 1-year, $7 million contract at 31 years old, coming off a season with 11 receiving touchdowns, the highest total ever recorded by a tight end for this franchise in a single campaign. He owns that position outright. Munt has 9 years in the league and a clear blocking profile, with just 658 yards and 4 touchdowns across his entire career. And Stowers was a second-round pick, number 54 overall, winner of the John Mackey Award as the best tight end in college football, signed to a 4-year deal worth nearly $9 million. He was drafted that high specifically to be the heir to the throne. Nobody is cutting that kid in August, so the real question becomes, where exactly does a 4th tight end, at 35 years old, fit on a 53-man roster? Where would that spot come from? A defensive back? A special teams player? And it's worth remembering that reports suggest Stowers' early showings on the field haven't exactly drawn praise, which opens a crack in the door, but only a crack. Now let's be fair and transparent, because this channel doesn't deal in fantasy. 4 points need to be crystal clear. First, there is no information whatsoever that the Eagles are actually negotiating with Zack Ertz. What exists is the public argument of a well-informed reporter. An argument is not a negotiation, and a radio opinion is not a signed deal. Second, we're talking about a 35-year-old athlete, 8 months removed from the reconstruction of a cruciate ligament. Medical clearance is an important milestone, but it is not the same thing as being in game shape. There is a real distance between catching passes on a college field and surviving Sundays in the NFL. Third, the roster math is honestly unfavorable. With 3 tight ends essentially confirmed, including a second-round pick on a 4-year contract, the space for a 4th name is tight and expensive in terms of that roster spot. And fourth, if the signing only happens in mid-August, he would miss virtually all of training camp and the entire installation of the new system under offensive coordinator Sean Mannion. Showing up late to a completely rebuilt offense is a concrete disadvantage, no matter how experienced the veteran is. So I really want to hear your opinion. Would you bring Zack Ertz back to Philadelphia, even at 35 years old and coming off a serious knee injury? Or do you think that's a decision driven by emotion rather than football? And going deeper, if the Eagles truly believe they're one Dallas Goedert injury away from a serious problem at the position, is it worth burning a roster spot on a veteran insurance policy? Or is the smarter move to trust the development of Eli Stowers and accept the risk? Drop it in the comments. I want to read what you think. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I'll be back later to update you with the latest Eagles news.